Okay, we're on. Let me just tag you. Dr. Joe, Jumpin' Joe Delaney. Never a dull moment. Let's give it another 60 seconds.
Okie dokie.
Got 2 people in the house. We need more than that. I don't know if you know, you can pull the comments up on your side. Do you know that?
No, I didn't know that, no.
If you go to the main screen and put your cursor on the main screen and click it, it will show some icons. And one of the icons is like a, like in cartoons when someone's thinking something and they put the little box, the thought box.
Yeah, oh, I see. No. Oh, no, it doesn't matter. Oh, don't worry.
Well, I'm not...
Screen, I've just got you on one and then me on the other next to each other.
On the big screen?
Yeah. I haven't got a big screen. I've just got 2 small screens.
No. You should have... Yeah, I don't know why people can't find that one. There should be a Jungle John's in the house. We'll have to get him back on here. He's of your... God, what is going on with the hairdo?
You need that, what's it called? Grecian 2000?
I need something. I look for it on your pages, but I do not find it. But thankfully it popped up on my notifications. Okay. We're going to have to do something about that. Man, I should have done something. Oh, well, you know what? Just get to the point where you don't give a rat's ass anymore.
Well, that's it, I think. Yeah.
All right, we got 40... Huh? What's that?
Are we live? Because it's not tagged. Oh, yeah, hang on. Something's happening here.
Yeah.
Todd Medina, review now. Okay, hang about it.
Yeah, we got 51 people in the house. We're going to sit down with Dr. Joe from Liverpool, that rough part of the Great Britain where all the great, powerful...
It is rough, mate, but where there's muck, there's brass.
That's right. That's right.
Now listen, Todd, I've been watching you rather carefully over the last month or 2.
Have you?
Yes, and I think that you've been undergoing oscillations and undulations plus. Would this be true?
Oscillations and undulations. Yes. Well, I suppose by somebody's explanation it could be explained that way, but there's so much energy that's going around. So many people have similar but different explanations of what that is. I'm almost afraid to speak mine, but I also see similarities between people's different interpretations of what they're receiving. But absolutely 100,000%. I mean, you could identify it that way. I see it as, my story is an individual story, and of course with Morgan and with Soulogy, but energetically, I'm watching it fit with other people's. So what I'm seeing is a constant convergence. There's kind of something in the air for me, which is shut the fuck up and just honor this convergence, because everybody's getting there. You can still reach out and try to do your best to illuminate souls in your service and in your work, but it's happening. It's not a cliche. It is true, let go or be dragged. I mean, you're going to get there through force or flow. There's this whole masculine, feminine thing playing out. I have my own intel. I'm not really that, I'm always an open book, but I know there's a lot of different viewpoints. And my feeling is this, all right, just to answer the question, just to set the question up. So Morgan, through my communions with her, through her intel, 369. 3 was the anchoring of the feminine, 6 the anchoring of the golden child, and 9 the anchoring of the masculine. I feel like, in my own right, there's been a massive amount of anchoring of the divine masculine for me. I've been told you're on point. I've been told don't play small. And a lot of this has just come really, really intently and compoundedly since I got to Sedona. It's like everything was being said, and then when I got here, I was given the exam. And so the Mother Goddess, through the faces of Mother Sedona primarily and so on, has told me what I just said, which is you're on point. I've heard quote unquote, somebody's got to do it. That doesn't mean it's just me. Obviously, there's a team or whatever. It may not be the full anchoring of the masculine, you know. I feel like what I've gotten wind of is the role of the masculine in the physical body, what his part is in this triad, and I'm being told create, 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 and don't look back. You know, don't get caught up in, oh, should you have done this, and oh, should you have done that. Stay present. Look for the signs in people, places, and things. Follow those signs, and don't look back. So for me, everything's adding up because I'm here. I'm supposed to do a Soulogy Fest end of September. I move out of my house that I've shared with Morgan for 2 years. My only home I've really had in a few years. I have to put everything in storage, and I'm being told, we'll tell you when you get to the next step. So I go to the mountain, and I find out we're going to have to move it up a month, which from a human, rational, logical, linear perspective doesn't make sense. You know, you should have more time. Another 30 days would give you, you know. But I was told this is what it's going to look like. So now you go to your friend's house in Texas, you can't get a signal. And thank you, Morgan. She's so funny, right? That I'm pushed over here ultimately. And it makes no sense. But it makes all the sense in the world. And so the question is, have I been undulating and oodulating and all oscillating? Abso-fucking-lutely. And so has everybody else. So I'm not like, you know, that's nothing new. I think for me, the ability to stay in the present moment is predicated on my willingness to own my transparency. So if I'm acting out, if I'm projecting, if I'm in a loop, if I'm emotional, if I'm feeling down, if I'm feeling up, whatever it is, own it, because I am transparent. And so some of the information that I might get from people around me is very important to consider always and be open to. But for me, that's it, because I want to be clean constantly in the present.
God, you don't half go on.
I know I went on. I just woke up. I'm just coming. I'm just, you know, I'm off my face. I mean, I'm not going to lie about it, you know. But this is what it is. I don't think it changes now.
I agree. You see, I agree with everything that you've just said there, even though you said a lot. Because I feel...
Well, I had to get my part in because you're going to have the rest of the show.
Because, you know, with all this stuff about, like, the throat's being activated and open now, I think that the heart speaks through the throat without the sort of editor butting in. And I think that that's what this is about. It's to be extemporaneous and contemporaneously. Let me explain that. Where you don't have to think what you're going to say next. You don't have to even worry about whether the words that come out will offend everybody else, because that's their problem if they get emotionally reactive because of something that's said. Because let's be honest, Todd, and I might become unpopular Dr. Joe tonight, but there you go, right? If you say something because your intention every single moment is to be a decent fella, to be helpful, to be kind, to be as considerate as you can be, right, but to do your soul's purpose. I know you, Todd. I've known you for a long time. That's exactly my intention as well, because when I wake up every morning, I say, take every single part of me, every cell of my physical body, every wave of my brain. You can have it all, universe. Use me as you see fit. And then I let go then, Todd. And no matter what happens during the day, I just go with it. Now, the only sort of rider I've got to that these days, and I could be wrong, like I've said to everybody, I could be totally wrong here, but I've been doing this for a long time, and it seems to be moving forward. I feel stronger and clearer than I ever had, right, and I feel really okay about myself. Not too much, not too little, just somewhere in the middle. And that's what I do, Todd. And the only indication I've got is when I'm out of flow is when I feel emotionally disturbed. End of story. And when I feel emotionally disturbed, and that tuned into my physical body now, Rather than emotionally reacting with that disturbance, I take a step back, I open my heart even further, I settle down until I get to that sort of neutral 0 point, and then I just say, show me what to do now, please.
Right.
You know, and Todd, it's not odd. Todd rhymes with God. See, I can feel the rapper in me coming
Todd,
out.
God dismiss, middle, was it?
Yeah, and
Middle
Sod
riddle?
comes, yeah,
Hey,
Sod
diddle,
comes
diddle.
in there.
Hey, well, let's back up because, man, you're coming at me like a machine gun, and there's a lot to unpack there, and I don't want to. I do this. Joe's sound is very quiet. Yeah, it is a little quiet. I don't know if you can turn up your. Are you using a microphone or what are you using?
Yeah, I've got a thing on my head here with a microphone.
You might look on your device, look under mics, and see if there's but otherwise you're fine. Or move closer. I'm not sure. Yeah, because I can hear you, but she wants to hear you be rude to me properly.
Okay. Well,
No. Okay.
On my microphone thing, it's working properly.
That's fine. You're good. Yeah, you're good. So yeah, the thing is, maybe I can adjust it here. Let's see. Yeah, they did something different to my thing here. Okay, hang on. Interview. Yeah, you're good. So yeah, but this. Okay, I don't think there is anybody on the face of the earth that has the airtight intel. And even if it was airtight intel yesterday, it's subject to change today. So I understand, and I absolutely agree with you because everything I've experienced, I've just had a long talk with Morgan, and it's about the throat chakra in a huge way. And if you have been watching my stuff in the last week or two, you can see I've done some things artistically that I never thought I would do. Okay? That is not Todd chasing some dream to be a rock star. That's Todd openly, transparently, to the best of his ability, and scared out of his fucking mind to share as I'm being guided to do. Now, going back to what you said, the first part, proceeding through our lives with this constant downloading and higher level of awareness in the moment as we're experiencing life, we do tend, through the years, me included, to draw a line in the sand and say, F that, I'm going to say this, or I'm going to do that. I think that there's always a fine line. And for me, I'm not taking out of the equation my compassion and my sensitivity for others, but I am honoring myself. I've sent Morgan was going to bed. I was waking up at 4 a.m. and we were just touching base. And I said something like, I don't remember. It was like, I was saying, hey, I'm on it. The you, me, we, and it. And she's like, well, make sure that you're doing that for yourself. And I said, absolutely, first and foremost, but they're all one and the same thing now. And what I meant by that is to the best of my ability. To be sensitive to all three aspects of the triad, in this case, Morgan Todd Soulogy or Morgan Todd Golden Energy or whatever. But it could be Todd Joe, like right now, is to be kind of touch volume very loud. Joe's is low. Okay, I don't know what's going on here. I might have to double check all this because yours doesn't sound that low to me. But the thing is, yeah, nothing to do but love her. That's exactly right. But the thing is to try to be, I'm trying to find that space where each thought, word, and action serves myself, the other, and the collective. And I'm finding that for myself, I have to be open to everything presented to me, and I can't be copying out and spiritually bypassing and clichéing away what my ego's agenda is, right? Like the survival of the ego, right? So I don't know. That's kind of where I just wanted to stop and say, for me anyway, and it may not be that way for you, I just want to have some sensitivity to everything around me because I'm at least operating from the place that this is me I'm looking at. Something like that.
Good heavens. I agree.
I don't know why you...
And what I think, you see, the way I look at it is we have two hemispheres here of our brain, the left and the right hemisphere. One's representative of yin, the other's representative of yang. One's the masculine component, one's the feminine component. And basically, because there's only this bipolarity, there's no balance point. So where's the balance point? What I've found is the balance point is through an open and flowing heart. Now, there's a danger, and I found this, that things like sentimentality are made up emotions. So romance, sentimentality, I'm not talking about open-hearted flowing love. I'm talking about things like romance and sentimentality are traps in my mind and the way I see things now, because I think that there's a deeper component called the soul, which is actually in the heart of hearts. So sentimentality to me, Todd, and I could be wrong, sentire means feelings and mentality means thought. So sometimes you can make things up because you think it's the right thing, because your ego's telling you. So when someone says so and so's passed away, you're right. When you don't feel anything, what comes in then is the social conditioning to say, oh, hang on, I need to say something here, or, oh, God, rest in peace, may they, do you see what I'm saying? So we have to make up a feeling that fits with the social conditioning. But if we don't have a feeling associated with it, we should stick with that neutrality. And that's really, really difficult, because people have expectations of how others should act in certain circumstances. By all means, you can make suggestions on how I could think, but please, nobody tell me how to feel, because that's what I had all my life. You should feel like this in this situation. And I changed myself in order to please them, to make up feelings which they were happy about then. And
Right.
Todd, that's a real problem. Now, the other thing is that I've found is I'm no longer masculine, feminine now. I feel they're just two components of the whole being. And I don't have that conflict anymore. In fact, even trying to sniff it out now and say that's the masculine, that's the feminine,
Uh-huh.
once again, I think to me, that's another trap, because it's another attempt at labeling. And once you've labeled something, you've missed the essence of it completely. Todd, I didn't know I was going to talk like this tonight, but this is the whole thing about lots and lots of people I know. They do that, and I've done it myself for years. Hang on, I better smile here now because it seems appropriate. Trouble is, I got it wrong all the time. I'd be smiling in situations where I should have looked miserable, and vice versa. So I don't know what I'm going about here, mate. But this
No,
feminine,
this
go
is the
on.
way we always roll with it. I'm going to take you
Yeah,
back to something else in a minute, because you set yourself up for it already. But
yeah,
no, I think what you're describing isn't just about when people die. It's not just about when people are in a relationship. It's every day, all day long, and everybody's done it. Okay, so everybody's tried to accommodate this program of codependency. I find the more that I deny I'm involved with it, the more I'm in it. And that's what I was saying earlier in that long extraneous answer, was that these things I'm sitting with. Somebody says something to me, I don't just go, F off, you're wrong. I might say, I got to go, leave me alone, and I'll go sit with it. Somebody gets presented in front of me that looks like, like my brother over here, Amethyst. Like running into him, and what's your story? What's my story? What's all this happening? What's converging here? I don't know what it is. Now, I'm not going to go off the deep end and say, hey, we're going to be doing this the rest of our life, or whatever the case is. One day at a time, one moment at a time. But for me, a really big sign or flag with me as an observer and also me as an experiencer is me using the words, or even alluding, they. Lots of people, they. One thing, and I think this new energy that's coming, I want to say since 1st of June, or maybe 1st of this month, is very much in your face like never before, obviously. And for me, I look for little ways to navigate with as much ease and grace as possible. And that, for me, is a big one. Like, is the minute I start getting into something in my head, or I'm projecting on other people that they're this and they're that, I start to lose my footing. So I'm really trying to be aware of my surroundings and to be present and do whatever I have to do to be present. But that's requiring me to be more open than ever to what comes my way, because obviously we're processing this stuff much faster, but it also requires that I'm open to what I'm not seeing in myself to the greatest degree ever. So I don't know where I'm going with that, but back to you, and then we'll get back to what you put up on your post because that sounded interesting.
Well, yeah, I agree, and I think what I've found is, and I'm only ever talking about, this is how I feel, this is how I see things, and I think everybody's correct, but we all see a partial truth
Yeah.
of the way that it is. So if we can just share, if someone says to you, Joe, what do you think and how do you see it? Right? They've asked me, so
Right.
I tell them then, without any editing. I just tell them, I just speak me truth there and then. If they get upset by what I've just said,
Yeah.
it must be a trigger. If it's a trigger, it must be going against some sort of standard that's within them, which either they're conscious or unconscious of, but it's causing an emotional reaction. So they should thank me because I've just highlighted in them some sort of judgment or belief system of a framework on how it should be. Todd, I honestly believe nobody's got any idea whatsoever on how it should be, especially now.
Yeah.
I don't,
Yes.
this truth vibration that's coming in is cleansing us of all the shit, all the programs, all the social conditioning, and it's leaving us just with who we are at the level of the soul. And each individual soul, as far as I see it, has a different gift, a different skill, or a different set of skills that when working with other people with different skills will make the world a better place. But we talk about the masculine coming back. I think he's coming back in a he's there to protect, he's there to do the work. There's two things. There was a Nobel Prize winner who talked about the masculine and feminine, but he talked about it in neuroscience terms. And he said the masculine component is called ergotropic. And what that means is does the work.
Mm-hmm.
This is a bit Catholic, this, because Saint Joseph the worker, he was Mary's husband, So I do honestly believe, like you said last night to the chap that was on, and I thought that was a great show, that, right? It reminded me of when I was in Venice Beach in Santa Monica. I'll tell you about that later. But where was it going? Yeah, so ergotropic means to get the work done. That's the one that needs the energy to go out and do the creativity, because it's his hands that do the work.
Right.
Inspired by the intelligence that's behind that. However, Todd, in an inverted world, I think that the world is in the mess that it's in. Here we go. Nobody will love Dr. Joe after what I'm going to say now.
Yeah.
Right? It's because of the inverted feminine and her manipulations behind the masculine that the world is in the state that it's in now. That's why I call it the mummy's curse. Because if you look around and you see that the influence that the mothers had, the Irish Catholic mothers, the Jewish mothers, the Hindu mothers, all that stuff about, oh, go on, son, or if you don't do it, husband, then you're not going to get this. So that temptress, that emotional blackmailer, right, has manipulated. No. The masculine has allowed the manipulation that's actually caused the situation we're in now. But thank God, Todd, that the sacred feminine's coming back now, right side up now, with nurturing, compassion, intelligence, and everything else. I think that's the energy that the sacred masculine's got to listen to in order for the world to be right size up. Over to you, Todd. I don't know whether you've got any comments to make on that.
I love it. I love it. I think the whole masculine feminine thing is the chicken and the egg. So is I forget the word you used, but let's just say, is the distorted feminine, in this, but in terms of this discussion, a culprit, an instigator, an initiator, but is the distorted masculine? Yes. So then you can get into questions of why did she do what she did? It's the chicken and the fucking egg, man. So let's just cut the shit, all right? I'm not talking to you. I'm just talking about, let's just bring this down to a more singular thing. We talked about it yesterday, Amethyst and I think on the show. I know we did privately because we're experiencing the same type of thing. But I feel like what's happened is our feminine anchored in the new age of old years ago, 2012, 30, whatever it is. And it went through a process. Now, this is a general description. I know inside there's a lot of sub cycles, right? Within the cycle, like on a clock or on a calendar. So once she landed, she created a presence and truth frequency that was not going to go away. That she is in us, that she is the feminine frequency. As a result of that, it created stress onto the existing masculine. So what ended up happening there is the distorted masculine became uncomfortable. And when it became uncomfortable, that's when it started to go diving into its own divinity. Now, we talked about Morgan's 369. I know it always doesn't match up linear, but this is the way I'm feeling it. Now, what's happened is, as a result of her anchoring, then him starting to have a greater awareness because of this presence that isn't leaving, he starts to anchor in his true nature, and whatever's left of her that's distorted, her and all of us, because the new masculine is coming up to meet what's there, then it puts pressure on the other gender, the other hemisphere, however you want to put it, and then it goes back the other way. But the bottom line is everything is about this universe finding itself again, reconnecting through all of us. Everything I do affects you and vice versa. So kind of conclude it and go off of what I was concluding last time. My approach is changing for me personally. It's like I don't have as much time or inclination. Not here. I'm not talking about this. I could be talking about with Morgan. I could be talking about with the whole world. I don't have the time, the energy, the inclination to sit down and break down what's happening real time, because what's happening real time is happening way quicker than any discussion we can have. What I am getting is the mother coming in and saying, listen, you got this. Here's your role in this three-part equation of the triad. Go to work, son. I got your back. And if you take this challenge on, I'll be there for you. And I don't know what it looks like, but to your point and the researcher that you were citing, the way you find out is by going out there and doing it. And if people are going to, going back to what you're saying, if people are going to say you made a mistake, if people are going to say you did something wrong, that's no different than what you were saying about you giving your thoughts to somebody and how it affects them. That's none of my business. Leaving it behind means I'm going to take one step and another step, and I am just like everybody else. I have the sovereignty and the connection with infinite intelligence. I have to value my infinite intelligence connection above all else, myself above all else, and to be confident and take those steps and let everything else go. Okay? Because they'll meet me there, and the best way they can meet me there and I can meet them there as they do the same thing is to allow them that freedom to flow. That's love. Love is free, And so that's just kind of my take on what you're saying. I really appreciate the way you kicked the ball here, because I was going to ask you about this mummy's curse. And I assumed, and it could be true for me and you and men and women, that it's tied to the mummy. It's herself. Yours for you, mine for me. Right? So if that's the case, then I'm probably better off, for me, going into myself and finding out where is my imbalance with my mom. Where is it? And I pull her up religiously every day. Religiously. And I'm still working on it. I'm still working on it. So, to me, that would make more sense. Like, at this stage in the game, anything coming at us, run to the trigger, embrace the trigger, go forth, and you will be assisted. But, yeah, I think the mommy thing it's the end all. It's it. That's it. Because if you're not straight with your mom, you're not straight with Mother Universe, Mother Goddess. And that's just the truth.
I agree. And I've been through that process, Todd. And my mother was the person that I've loved more than anybody else on the planet and hated more than anybody else on the planet.
Wow.
Because my relationship with my mother, right, I was a very sickly child. I was 6 weeks premature. I was born with scoliosis and hip problems. So I was nurtured by my mum, right? But come the time when she needed to let go of me, she couldn't, you see. And this is what I'm saying is I'm not at all being critical here at all, because I've resolved all these problems, right? And what I'm saying is that what started off as protection, right, became control. And things like when she said to me when I was young, she said to me, you know, you've chosen Saint Aloysius as your confirmation name. Why is that? Now, Saint Aloysius, right, he was a healer.
Yeah.
Right, and this was me at 7 years of age, and I said, because Mum, I'd like to become a medical doctor, right, or whatever words I used then. And this was her response: ooh, they're awfully clever. Right, so there's me, that's my mum telling me that I'm not going to be as clever as those people. They all live in big posh houses. They've all got more money than us and all that, you see. So that was me running my truth past my mum. Now, her fear for my safety, right, came across, and I was sensitive to that. And it started to change the direction. So every time I had an idea, Todd, I used to run it through my mother. Now, my
Right.
mother is emotionally sensitive. She's psychic. Her mother used to read tea leaves. They're Irish gypsies, basically, you know. So I was brought up in that Celtic, Irish, gypsy,
Mm.
Roman Catholic environment, right? And so when I met anybody then, right, you know, met a girl, you know, my idea was, this is the girl for me. We're going to get married, have 2 kids, blah, 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 you know, as you think, as I used to think, you know. And my mother said, son, there's plenty of fish in the sea. I thought, fucking hell, I just can't please her at all. I spent most of my life trying to please my mother more than anything else. And when my mother didn't get her own way, she would do this, Todd, and she wouldn't say a word. And I remember walking on eggshells, hoping that she'd turn round and smile.
Is
Now,
that the mother? Is that the mother and the son, or the well, just the divine partners? The energy of the masculine and the feminine. I mean, that's
I
crazy.
don't think it's the divine partners. I think it's
Well,
the
you know what I mean.
inverted partners. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, I'm just talking about what I've had to discover. There was such deep hatred and resentment in me that I had to turn my eyes inwards and look at this,
Right.
because it was always causing me emotional disturbance, right? And that's because I wasn't allowed, or I didn't allow myself to think for myself. Now, my dad's on the other side, and his favorite expression was, play it by ear, son, and think for yourself. So you see, here's the masculine in me now. So I've got this massive conflict. And at the end of their relationships, my mother and father loathed one another. They just loathed one another. My father said to us at one point, he said, I'm leaving your mother. We all ganged up together as children. We said, no, you are not. So he was kept in a marriage where everything had already fallen apart for the sake of the children. So you see, Todd, all these things have a very, very powerful impact upon emotionally sensitive people, or ordinary
All
people, just
people.
ordinary people. Yeah,
All
all
people.
people. But because we're born, well, I felt I was born with more sensitivity than most, you know, and all that sort of business, you know, and that's because I was special and different, or so I thought for a long time. I lived in Fantasy Island for years and years, Todd, until I got to the point where I tried to take my own life. And then that thing happened to me where the voice spoke to me, and I got the peace that passeth all understanding. And then my whole head opened up, and a voice said to me, don't worry, son, right? You signed up for this. You shouldn't have signed the form if you can't take a joke, right? So what we're going to do now is we're going to turn you around, kick you off the bottom, and we're going to show you one step at a time the way to basically reset yourself, and then you show others. What we show you, you show others, and the world will
But
become a
that,
better place.
but that's that is, and not to take anything away from it. That's the same message we all got. We've all gotten this message and we're correct to a point that we're to share it, because a true download is shareable, right? Uh, to me, this is a really the potential of this conversation is tremendous For instance, one of the exercises that Morgan's taken me through was zero pointing. And the mother is always front and center. That's Mother Goddess. And I don't care how much of a hell bitch anyone's mother's been, and whatever our story is, there's one way to determine if you can go walk on water, is to put Mother Goddess in the same space as your mother, and hold those as equal. Okay, like without anything. Like you said, I love her to death, but she also pissed me off. Whatever. So in this process, and you could take several different things. Like, what are the things that stigmatized you that came from the mother? Because your story is very similar to many, many men, I know for sure. And I also know a lot of women that talk to their mother every day, even as they get older and older and older. So in my case, I had a real issue with the feminine embarrassing me, with the feminine making fun of me, and being kind of shitty in a public setting. That bothered me. So once I got to a certain point and I realized that it was me, so Morgan says to me, go back to the first time that happened that you can remember. And I distinctly remember I was 8 years old. It was the summer, and I was in that age of going from, like kids playing with toys to things maybe of an athletic nature or whatever, right? I was in that phase. So I went to the Five and Dime store, with a trip with my grandmother and a bunch of us kids, and I got some little miniature plastic cowboys and Indians, right? Because I used to love to like set them up and then get rubber bands and have wars, right? That's just what you do, right? So I did that. So she came back to my grandmother's house and she reprimanded me in front of everyone. But not like a reprimand like, you're in trouble, I'm going to spank you. More like, what is the matter with you? Aren't you over that? Haven't you grown up? It was a very demoralizing, embarrassing situation that stuck with me for a long time. So I went to that point, and then I went to the point of when did I do this to myself? That was the second instruction. So then I went to a time when I was 19 years old, and I won't go into details because there were others, but this was the first time I did it to myself that I could recall. So I actually found the place where I embarrassed myself in front of my peers, and it was mind-blowing, because now what was available to me was I was able to take these one that was done to me and one I did to myself and 0 point, to find the value of the experiences that I had perceived as traumas, which was, for me, it was taking the onus of the stigma of the experience off of the feminine period, mother, and all that flows from that, to bring into my field a more stable and more clear connection that still continues, with the feminine, or my perception of the feminine and the mother, right? So I don't know, what attributes that rubbed you the wrong way. Like our mothers all do that one way or the other. But I think that type of open, anecdote in this case, or process, if we were to do it right in front of everybody, I think that's a powerful thing, especially for men, and especially as we try to bring this I see it like it's being stitched together, like the brain, masculine, feminine, and it's kind of like being stitched together. As we try to do this with each other, for ourselves, I think one of the big things that has been under wraps more than anything has been, and we know this, the masculine side of us being emotionally shut down. Now we're getting to these reasons why without throwing rocks and without demoralizing and taking anything or anyone down. Just saying, look, because I'm telling you, there's a lot of men out there that have a lot to say that have never said it. And I think at the end of the day, it's all going to end up at the same place for all of us anyway. It is the mother, because the mother is our universe.
See, I mean, yeah, obviously, this is a very deep conversation. I'm resolved in this area. My mum's in a home round the corner, and I go and see her 5 times a week. She's got senile dementia. She can only sort of hold on to a conversation for 10 seconds, and then she just says the same thing.
But how did you get there? Did you have a problem with your mom, or problems?
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
and
below
how?
the level of below the level of my consciousness, Todd, because I
Right.
was pushing it down, because consciously, oh no, I can't say that about me mum because she's me mum and I love her. Well, there's a whole load of stuff suppressed, repressed and compressed in me that I wasn't being honest about. So
Right.
I've had to open my heart, allow it to transform, share these things with people that I can trust. And it was only in that process. I'm not pointing a finger at my mum, because I know that I am 100% personally responsible for signing up for this, so I could learn more about
Right.
human nature in its polarity, right, and also in its unification as well. And I think that when your heart's open, it unifies the cerebral hemispheres, masculine and feminine. But Todd, it's a vertical transformation. There's a bit that joins them together. You can't stitch them together by jumping from one side to the other. That's horizontal and it's never balanced. So you have to come out of that bipolarity and completely out of it into the heart and the heart of hearts. And it's that energy, that 0 point energy that contains everything. It's that stitches them together. My whole PhD was all about something called accentuated antagonism. So that means like knocking shit out of each other. And what happens in your hemispheres is reflected in the way that your heart, right, emits radiation, if you like, right. And so you can actually analyze at the level of the heart how your head's working, right, and then it's called coherence. And so the universe in its infinite wisdom put me into a position where I'd learn about the heart, and I'd learn that you can change the way that your heart works to change the way that your head works. Todd, this is really important, this, because what we do in the West is we try and think new thoughts. So we bring more psychology in, so that we can bring more thoughts in, so that we can contain and repress all the stuff that's trying to come out. Now, the stuff that I teach and that's been taught to me, and I only know, I know bits and pieces of it. I'm not a perfect expert, but you can change the way that your heart emits signals to actually send it back to your brain to change the way your brain waves work. And when you go from a beta state, this is beta brain waves, into what's called alpha theta, then you're in a position of neutrality then. And that's what I believe the 0 point is. It's a condition called relaxed alertness. And in that relaxed alertness is the sacred union of those divine counterparts. And they're called complementary opposites. And that means that they've got completely different functions, but they work harmoniously with one another. Bloody hell, Todd, I didn't know I was going to go
How
over
do
to
you,
you quick
but
while
see,
I get a breath.
but here's my well, look, because I mean, there's a lot of modalities. One thing I do notice is that regardless of modality, it's one thing. It's kind of like making money. I realized a long time ago after I made and lost money, it's one thing to make money. It's another thing to sustain the abundance of that. Like people win a lottery and then they lose all the money, right? You know what I mean? So I see a lot of modalities. We're all subjected to the human condition. I understand that. I don't see any that sustain with permanency, and maybe that has to do with what's actually been available to us from the new universal energy that's coming on through the sun, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't see anything that sustains it. I do see things that clear, and then once it's cleared, and Morgan is, pretty good about explaining this, you can clear something, but the patterns and behaviors are still there. Well, sometimes those patterns and behaviors are still there because you haven't cleared it, even though you said, I've cleared it. I have not cleared my mother. I love my mother. I have had a lot of history with my mother, like everybody has. I would rather, it's like when I came off the streets, I put myself in rehab because I wanted someone to tell me, you're not crazy. I felt like I wasn't crazy, but I needed to know more. So there's always that. I can't close that door. And I'm not saying anything about your statement. I'm just trying to give my own. It is a constant thing. And I really struggled with that for a while. And I thought, well, why is it that I can't find balance? And then I went to the nth degree and I went, okay, wait a minute. If I clear my mother, truly clear my mother, then I have made peace and I am in perfect equilibrium with the mother goddess that is this universe. And I'm not. But it doesn't mean I'm not making progress and I'm not open to it. This is why we're having this conversation, particularly now, I think. And again, not to get too hell-bent on gender, but I do think, however you want to look at Morgan's interpretation, so many other people, what's happening, my own experiences, what your experiences are, something's going on with the masculine energy. Doesn't mean the men, but you're seeing it a lot in the men. Something's going on, and it's a combination of getting cleared out, which could only be the remnants and the residual of the interactions with the feminine that we separated ourselves from. Okay, so there's that part of it, but at the same time, for each degree of true cleansing that can't be faked that occurs, there's this primordial, ancient power that's coming through that is like nothing I've ever seen. It speaks through the mother's voice. It's following the feminine in me. It's allowing the feminine in me to lead, unencumbered, unobstructed, accepted, and allowed. And it's tapped into creativity. There's less structure, and it's scary, but it's powerful. And I feel like that this link to the relationship with what we separated in our own minds from the other gender, and because it's the mother, it's like the mother load, no pun intended. Like it's untapped resources. It's like it's freaky, but yeah, that's just been my approach. And I'd like to know if you can remember, like, how did you get to that point? Or only because maybe this will help somebody. Did you, like, for instance, did your mother have a certain characteristic and you went, oh, I just realized that I don't like when people tell me what to do or zip their mouth when the stress is on or whatever it is. I mean, how did you get to that point, A, and how did you bring it into equilibrium?
I went into Alcoholics Anonymous, where they basically said to me, forget psychology, you need to move beyond psychology. And they talk about being placed in a position of neutrality. And the way that they suggest that you keep an eye on things is, if you're feeling emotionally disturbed for any reason, it's not the divine part of you, right? It must be your ego at some level. Now, ego's I could explain ego in sort of different ways.
Wait, I want to understand that because I never heard that before. And I went through some AA, not like to the degree you did. But if you're I just want to. So what you were told was that if you are feeling an emotional imbalance, that is not of a divine nature?
Yeah. Wow, an emotional imbalance. I'm talking about a reactive state now. A negative affective. Affective means emotional. So this is affections. So if you're in a negative affective state, then I'm in a position then, right, of not clarity or insanity or whatever. I'm in danger of picking a drink up. So you see, I have the sword of Damocles hanging over my head, and this is what's caused me. If I don't want to drink again, Todd, I have to keep very, very close to the principles of spirituality that were given to me. And what it means is, if I'm not open and flowing and I'm in a negative situation, it's because of egocentricity. People don't want to hear this. It goes, let me just do this bit. Yeah. Selfishness, self-centeredness, that we think the root of all our problems. Driven by 100 forms of fear, we step on the toes of our fellows and they retaliate, seemingly without provocation. But we invariably find that at some time in the past, we have placed ourselves in a position to be harmed. And what that is, Todd, it's called karma, right? And so let me just try and explain this, because it's a bit deep, this. But what I'm saying is, if I'm emotionally disturbed, it's a judgment at some point. I've made a judgment, whether it be conscious or unconscious. It's a judgment. And that's why most spiritual texts say, stop judging. You can't stop judging by thinking your way out of judgment, because that's a judgment in itself. Judgment has to be removed by unconditional love. Todd, there's a complete difference, as well you know, between human love, which is possessive, and unconditional love, which is not ours. We don't make it, So even trying to conjure up a feeling of love is another egomaniacal sort of distraction, right? I'm sending you love. No, I'm not. I'm getting out of the way so that love can work through me, but I can't direct it because I don't know what you need. So I'm just going to say, dear love, if it's possible, can you help that person? Thy will, not mine, be done. So, Todd, you see, we have to sort of become nothing, and people don't want to hear that. The ego doesn't want to become nothing. Or if it wants to become nothing, it wants to be more special in nothingness than anything else. So it either wants to be top of the pile or the furthest, I've gone through more shit than you have. That's all like egomania. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to say hi to my friend Rory. Nice to see you again. Nice to see you again. Hey, okay, so even deeper, okay? Like I've had my issues with drug addiction, alcohol, whatever, sex, drugs, rock and roll. You've been open about your relationship with alcohol, but I'm not looking at an alcoholic. I'm not looking in the mirror and looking at a drug addict or a sex addict. I'm not going to be pigeonholed by the infrastructure of illusion. So much of what we have gotten us to this point in 2022 is no longer relevant to our current present state. It is part of our journey. It's a chapter in a book, but I think to take the what we were talking about, because the mother is the root. So anything that comes from that is everything. So if I look at our situation with substance abuse, it never was the substance abuse, and you know that, and I know that, and I think that's out there enough in the world that people have a grasp. It's something deeper. I think this is the field that we're in now. We're in the field that we can stop telling the stories. Because if we're telling the stories, I'm still an alcoholic. And if I'm seeing myself as an alcoholic and I got to keep telling, and I'm not picking on you because I do the same thing. If this is something that's still coming up for me, why is it coming up? Because I'm not clear, right? Now, the mother is the ultimate, because I don't think, people can say what they want to say, and it may be something really subtle and minute, I don't know, or maybe it's another form of the mother that you don't associate with your actual mother. But if you have a problem with anything external, that's the universe, that's the mother. That's the way I look at it. But so for me, I think we're in a field now of creation and the experiential, where we are able to pull from real-time Akashic, real-time living library, and a combination of both, and be in a whole different set of band of frequency. Like it's over. Like where people are talking about with the battle of the sexes, the war is over. Or there'll be some other things, I can't think of them right now, that have been like, battle cries, or collective statements over these last 10 years since 2012. Yeah, I think it's really the nut cutting time. It's really getting down to the brass tacks. You mentioned that. That's why when I saw your post, I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting. But because to me, it is all the same thing. It is all the mother. But it's the personal part. And I saw the comment up there a while ago. I think it was Morgan, and then somebody reaffirmed, and it was talking about personal responsibility. Like this is so important. As we think about this in the community, and like these people are saying that, and these people are saying this, and these people, oh my God, and I do it. We've done it together, But even more importantly is in what's happening to us right here. Like in this exchange, and I walk out, and I'm going to be hanging out with my friends and see what we get into work. Like that's where it's important is to not look at, oh, you did that to me. Why is this being shown to me? Like, what is the trigger, if we want to use that word? Why is that happening? Why am I drinking? Right? Why am I drinking? If I'm drinking and that triggers me thinking I'm not worthy or alcoholic or whatever, what is it? What is it that's beneath it? What is it? Because I think that's really what we're being afforded now. We're being afforded the opportunity to go down to the very, very depths and no more BS and really go, this is about me. So what can you tell me about me? Which is interesting because you started the show and said you've been indulating or whatever that word was, and oscillating, and you're welcome to go deeper with me on that if you haven't satisfied, or if you feel like there's some potential there. I'm happy to talk about in an effort to help myself and anyone else, and I respect your insight. So have at it.
So what I've learned, Todd, is if I'm emotionally disturbed, it's because of the bipolarity. It's a judgment, so it's an ego thing. So now, how can I get to this neutral point? Because at the neutral point, there's a calmness, there's an emotional flow. Some people call this being in the zone and whatever. So the whole point is now that I've trained myself now that any part of my body that feels tense is hanging on because of some sort of a judgment at depth. And it's a little indication to say, Joe, that's tense because of this. And it shows me all the time. And Todd, it's silly things. Sometimes it's because I've said yes when really I should have said no. It's all these things. So it's a refinement, really. Let me just go to one thing. Todd, what if I was to say to you, there's no feminine, there's no sacred feminine, there's no sacred masculine? There isn't. They're just labels and the bipolarity that's causing all the trouble, because the soul is androgynous. It's unified. It doesn't have a sex. It doesn't have a color. It doesn't have all those things. It's a unified being. I think once you get to that, this is the most important thing, is once you live beyond mind, there's no conflict. I'm not saying that I'm like that all the time, but there are times when I'm completely and utterly still, but yet completely aware of everything that's going on. And
Mm-hmm.
that's happening to me more and more and more. It's only when the masculine and the feminine, the yin and the yang, right, it's only when they're jumping across and having a conversation with one another that does the imbalance start. I don't know whether I'm explaining this, but I think that the solution is beyond mind. It's beyond spirituality. It's beyond psychology, and it's living in spirit all the time. And it's knowing the feeling of that. Because the alcohol thing, as you said, that's just a symptom. That's just a treatment that we use. Some people use sex. Some people use buying stuff, retail therapy. Some people use food. But the problem is, it's a spiritual solution, right? It's there was a song, "A Hole in the Soul," and what we try and do it until we know, we try and fill it with material things, and temporarily we might get some relief, but over time we come to realize that that's not the solution. So we'll try something different, material. And material, a person is material, isn't it? And that, so I'm going on a bit now, but all I can say is this is my experience now, is when I feel disturbed, I can breathe it away, settle down, open my heart, ask for the solution, and just wait till the answer comes and then take an action. And there's another thing that came to me today. Joe, you don't act upon information received. You act upon information perceived. And that's
Okay.
why everybody's different,
Yeah.
because the information that's coming in is exactly the same, but how you process it is completely different based upon your social conditioning. Todd, let me do this next bit, because I think that we have to go back and clear our own shit, and then we have to go further back and do our family shit, our culture shit, our planetary shit, and we even get back into cosmic shit then that's gone on for eons of time. And I like a Buddhist expression. I don't know what sort of form of Buddhism it is, but they said freedom only comes when you get back to the original face, smiling face of the universe. And I think that we're all going on that pathway now. We're spiraling backwards to clear out the shit so that
Yeah.
the full force of unconditional love, whether it's feminine or masculine, can come through and unify us. Jesus Christ, I'm the Pope again. Bless you.
Yeah. Well, no, I appreciate what you said. I want to go back to the first thing you said. What if I told you that's the masculine and the feminine isn't even real? We're androgynous. Now, I get that. And then my reference to the creator as a feminine is not really associated with gender beyond this realm. It's a way to identify what I consider to be the source, which is, I mean, if you look throughout the feminine, they bear children. So now I just want to make that quick. That's not defense. I'm just wanted to be clear about it. But I totally get what you're saying. But I do believe Earth is a very unique place. Obviously, there's polarity. Obviously, there's been an inversion that amped things up as we head into this home stretch based on all accounts. And obviously, duality, right? What's going to be the center of it all? The masculine and the feminine, right? I mean, that's it. Now, those are terms that maybe were made up. Maybe they weren't. Maybe they were made up for this realm. I don't know. But the fact that we are carrying the physical properties to the degree that we are, okay? And even though there's a lot of propaganda and, whatever involving sexual gender and all that, there's a reason for that. That's beyond the bullshit that the mainstream media and those that the powerless powers that be, their intentions. There is something happening. So we are actually in the physical process of coming to the reality that you're talking about. But had we been put into this very unique situation, this very unique realm, as androgynous already, there'd be no pop.
Exactly.
And half of us wouldn't have shown up. I came here. You came here. We're figuring this out as time goes on. All the bullshit, all the hard times, all the pain and suffering, all the problems we had with our mother, okay? This is why we came here. So if I would conclude your question in this way, I think that the masculine and feminine energies, conceptions, whatever you want to call it, are simply, this is how we refine and make a better universe. We've gone into this mission. We have emphasized and amplified what each one of them is. We have taken on the perception of a reversed role, observing, and we've taken on the experience of the experiencer. And in that soup of living library coding that can only be obtained through human beings having the balls and the ovaries to come down here and do it, is the gold. And this is why the triggers are becoming perceived as something different now. They're becoming seen as an opportunity that will be as quick and painless as going in to get a shot from the doctor when you're a kid, right? So there's no more buildup. There's no more predetermination of if you do that, then that means this. Now it's like, oh, I feel a little bit off because Joe said something, or what did he say, or where was it in the you know what I mean? And then you go and do your work like you're talking about. So yeah, I just give respect to, and I'm like you. I mean, I've had this conversation with Morgan many, many times, and but I've come to really respect, especially now in this last week, because if you just look at my situation in the last week, what do you have? You have two primary elements. You have this massive mother energy. Massive, like speaking to me like never before, and I can't be the only one. And then you have the avatar, the physical man who's finding himself, who's having to dip down into his courage and his love and his wisdom and his confidence and his connection in a way that he never has before. So those are the two elements. And it's not a mother and son. It's just that's what it looks like. It's all me, right? I mean, it's me. But yeah, so I get what you're saying. I think that's where we're going. But I think the journey, as I say, is the destination is a journey, and this is this path of the trying to the perfect imperfection, that we're making new code. I mean, it's all upside down. Everything's always the reverse, right? Everything's always upside down. It's a great paradox. No
I
sound here.
think we're doing. I think that we're doing rather well, personally,
Yeah.
my old friend.
Yes.
And I think you're right. We're in this 3D world here, physically incarnated, and there are certain principles and rules and regulations that operate at this level. There is good and there is evil. As we move up in dimensions, I think that they merge then and become different things,
Mm.
but the principles change. So I think we go from. I'll just explain that there's 4 different stages as far as I understand. There's the gross level, which is basically earth level. Then we become more subtle. Then it become causal. So we become in touch then with the soul and the soul's purpose. The final stage of human development, so I understand, is called non-dual.
Mm-hmm.
Non-dual.
Yeah.
So that means there's a reunification. And I think, Todd, when we first come in, and there's neuroscience that shows this, we come in as a brain stem. So there's only one, there's no bifurcation there. There's no duality. There's just the stem, the one-way system that comes in. When we then develop then and our cerebral hemispheres come online, then we understand, because the first stage of human development is very narcissistic. It's just a child. Everything's just me. And then we go into a different stage when our nervous system hits this bifurcation of hemispheres. Then we become, hang on a second, there's me, but what's that outside myself? You see, so we move, and then I think we go in a spiral like that, crossing. And I think right at the end, we join up again at the pineal gland, and that's what the reunification is. And then it come out of the crown of the head then. So I see that in all sorts of different ways. I mean, Kabbalah with the 12 spheres explains this nicely. They think that there's an etheric, an invisible counterpart to what's going on in the brain, and they can actually overlay this sort of morphogenetic template, if you like, on the brain. And there's certain areas of the brain that have particular characteristics, 6 of them on the left side, 6 of them on the right side. So Todd, I feel that I'm only just scratching the surface here of what's possible. I don't think many, as humans, we haven't got a clue, mate. All right, I feel that we've got no idea what our potential is, but we're becoming much more aware of it. And I feel like people have said in the chat, you just got to surrender everything and say, "Go on, big boy, big girl, have me now." And
That's true. That's
yeah,
true.
do with me what you
Yeah.
will, and show us how this goes. And then almost like, stop thinking about it, just feeling our way and navigating to our next level of intelligence or
Yeah.
potential or skill or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, God, you said a lot there. I want to unpack a couple things. Uh, one just ironic thing, because you're right. We don't know. When we think we do know is when we get in trouble.
Yeah.
But what you said about the child, and I know you were speaking in medical and clinical professional terms, that is a narcissistic thing. As a child, that I could understand that statement, especially from the establishment. But the fact for me is I've been going back to my child, I'd say up to about 5 or 6, and grounding per direction, per guidance, and I'm in a place of it's all me.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful place, because everything I experienced with my sisters, with my mother, my father, my brother, my family, everything I experienced was that reflection of me. Like you were talking about perception a minute ago. Like it was the same thing. I can remember my grandmother picking me up and saying, "Mijito, you're so beautiful," and I'm like, I know I am. You're full of light. Yeah, I know I am. So that's one thing. 2, I think that I agree with what you said about we don't know anything. But I'd also feel like in these last few weeks, we've reached a point where we have to give ourselves credit. We have to stop playing small. I had a huge transmission down here a few days ago. We have to own it. And, I purposely have played small for a lot of reasons. Some might be smarter than others, but the armor's coming off. And it goes back to a lot to what you said at the beginning of the show, I'm just trying to be less punching between the eyes and making a statement with my sheer presence or the expansion of my throat chakra, which is the expansion of my heart, which is what I see makes us all go. I mean, this isn't Soulogy, this isn't Todd. This is how we all really, when you're in the truth frequency, period. We'll leave it at that. So that was the other thing, that I feel like that we have the ability to embody that which we haven't known in real time. So one of the things that I've had to contend with, and I'll share this openly in hopes that it will assist someone else, not on the specific issue, but just energetically how these things can be so deep-rooted. And you really made this point so beautifully when you talked about it's not just here, it goes into the ancestral human lineage, the soul lineage, planetary, and it just keeps going until you see the happy face. A few years ago, I had a download, and it involved a sexual molestation. Now, all I know is what I experienced in that moment. I knew it was me. I knew it was full blown and all this stuff. I didn't know if it was this life. I didn't even know. I just knew what happened. I went out and made a spirit walk video that day. 18,000 people came in. That's impossible. That's impossible. So there's something to be said there for the energetics that supports you when you're doing stuff, whatever. Okay. But what ended up happening was about a few months later, I was with Morgan in Utah, and I had this download of all these molestations that I had been the victim of, apparently, through what some might call past lives. I don't know that I really follow that, but certainly within my DNA structure, within my memory banks. So very recently, I've been going into that because it was one of these situations where I was like, where the hell did this come from? And was it in this life? Was it in other lives? How did this go? So I start tapping into this. I'm in a hotel, some free time, and I just chiseled away at it to finally get to the point where I would just summarize the message. The message was, you don't need to know the details. Number one, it doesn't matter if it was this life, other lives, all the lives, it doesn't matter. It's energy, it's trapped. And the idea is to open up more. So I went to bed with it, so to speak, and I located it, and it didn't happen instantaneously, but it happened over a few days, and I literally could feel physical pieces of me breaking off and being let go, or being whatever, transformed. Now, the reason I bring this up is because the biggest lesson for me, and this could apply to anything we're talking about, and again, this is just my experience, but the biggest thing for me was when I got out of the way, when I surrendered, not you think, oh, I'm surrendered to the pain, surrendered. No. I surrendered to having to know, because who needs to know? Who needs to know? Why? So I can go tell the story, and so I can, oh, this is where I came from. That's who needed to know. So as soon as I got Todd out of the way, which doesn't mean that Todd leaves, it just means that the Todd that's shrouding the real Todd, I am Todd. In this life, I am Todd. I'm a man, okay? That's my little boy. That's my inner child. So I had to move this other Todd, all these masks, all these different, you know what I'm talking about, egoic mask, okay? And that was the key for me, and it was so profound that it literally hit home in this conversation. And I don't know why, but to me, that was the lesson. And the reason I love it so much is because it took all the story out. So it doesn't matter. Was it the thing with the mother? Was it the thing with sexual abuse? Was it the thing with your boss at work? Was it the thing with your wife or your girlfriend? It doesn't matter. You don't need to know. It's strictly energy. And I think, kind of just to sum it up, I think that's where we're at now, where we can look at these things. We look at triggers as energy. We look at things people say to us as energy. We look at everything as energy. It becomes less personal. And when it becomes less personal, then those programs or those sub-programs or patterns or whatever are not supported any longer. Does it take the love out? No, it takes that love you're talking about out, right? So I really appreciate you letting me share that. I really don't know why it was connected to what we're talking about, but it did come up and land as I'm talking to you, and I've always tried to follow that on this show, that when something pipes in, even if it doesn't make sense, say it in that moment. So I appreciate you holding space for me.
No, it's been very interesting and worthwhile, this conversation, like we always have. And what I feel, Todd, is this is coming up a lot now, and I see it because I feel energy. I see that there's a lot of stuff going on between the root and the sacral chakra, and the throat as well. And I think sometimes it's got to come out. We can call this deep throat, but maybe we shouldn't. But the point about it is, right, it's basically this, Todd.
Well,
It's basically,
let me ask
the
you.
vibration's got to start.
Let me ask you a question.
The vibration's got to start at the perineum, which basically opens up the sacral chakra, because there's a lot of gunge in there that needs clearing out, and we've basically got to clear our throat out as we express it. But it must be done through an open heart, because all that energy coming up, if it misses the transformation of the heart, it drive you mad, Todd. So there is a personal responsibility with everything, right? But I think what I've learned is the heart is the transformative organ that actually, it doesn't neutralize the energy, it transforms it into power. And that's what I honestly feel is true empowerment, is to let go of the obstructions that we've put in place. Todd, nobody did anything to me ever without my permission at some level. That's what true 100% responsibility is.
I agree. I agree with that. But
So
we're
I came out with all that.
but we're no. It's all relevant, and it all correlates, because this is part of what's happening now. It comes up like this, and you don't even know what you're saying. You said this at the beginning. It just comes out. So this is us. Building this new grid, or whatever you want to call it, this evolution of the soul, whatever you want to call it. But I wanted to ask you something, because I don't know. And again, I understand that the masculine feminine thing is something that all that matters right now is the place that we're in. So how it works outside this, whatever. But when we think about sexual violation, we think typically about, and we're right, at least, in terms of volume of occurrences. There is a masculine that is violating a feminine, or we could rephrase it, there's a masculine violating a less powerful being. Could be a feminine, could be a child, could be another man. Okay. Now, so the conscious reflection of that particular type of thing tends to put the masculine in the victimizer role. Now, the reason that I'm bringing this up is you were talking about that. You said it wasn't, but it was to me linked. I'm just wondering because I've never seen it, but I think there's enough out there of the violator, of the victimizer, and there's because there's been enough out there, I believe men in general, or whatever that part of us has looked at that. Not that it's over, but that it's there. But what about what's happened to them when they've been victimized? Now, I'm not just talking about this life. I'm talking about what's in our DNA, what's been a part of this thing, and a lot of the memories that I had when I went deep diving had to do with me in situations where I was in like a monastery, or wherever they train priests and things like that, and there was molestation, assaults, and other nasty, gross, right. But the whole point is, I wonder if there is or maybe we're feeling the alignment. If there is, we're going to be soon experiencing, or maybe this is part of it. I don't know, where men are going to be openly talking about how they've been violated. Whether and clearly in this incarnation would probably have the most power and be the first thing we would remember. But I really feel like that this, if this isn't the specific or one of the specifics of what's occurring, it's at the level of what's occurring, and in particular for the masculine part of us, because that masculine part of us doesn't talk and has to be Billy Badass, and we all know that a bully is an insecure little puppy, right? So I don't know. I just wondered what your thoughts were. Do you think that we might be seeing this? Do you think it's important? Have you experienced it with your clients in the past, and what has that been like? So there you go.
Yeah, it's definitely emerging, and especially over the last few months, strangely enough, it seems to be coming to the fore. And the thing is, at the age 11, I was sent away to train into a seminary. They call it. They should call it a seminary, but it's called a seminary. So I was 11 years of age, and I was
Oh,
sent
geez,
away.
you made me
I
snort.
was sent away to start into priesthood training, which was basically 13 years of indoctrination. But I only lasted for 18 months because I missed my mum. There's my mum connection.
Yeah.
But then I was then from there out of the frying pan into the fire, and I went to a Christian Brothers school then. And these were people who were sort of the like priests, but not ordained as Catholic priests, and they were cruel, generally speaking, and they used to fiddle around with most of the kids, and I was one of those kids as well. So I don't want to bring all that up, because otherwise I think that the more we sort of exaggerate the story, the more it keeps the ego alive and all that sort of thing. So I
No,
agree
but
with you.
yeah, I get that. But I think just like for you to be able to say that tells me that we're onto something, because obviously you're a practitioner. You look into this stuff. This is what you do. But you were just one of, and I'm not going to get wrapped up in the story at all. But I'm just saying I believe that the physical reality that there are a boatload of men out there who have been violated in this lifetime, okay, and only this % of it's been put out there, that from an energetic standpoint, that's going to have to be, it only makes sense that that's going to have to be, imploded or something.
Well, Todd, I think there's a bigger issue here, and it's about control. It's about elite agendas. It's about making sex bad, because sex is, as you know, it's the center of creativity. And if you call it, and we repress it, we never get past our belly buttons then. And that's why there's a lot of men in these places who've got such compressed, repressed energy, big hearts, and yet big guilt complexes. So what actually happens is, as they get feelings coming up, see, Todd, I've gone really deeply into this, and I think sometimes when hearts open, what tends to happen is it drags up all this compressed energy, and then that sexual stuff takes over then and causes so many problems. And that's why it's so important to share these things with people who understand, with people who've been through the process, with no embellishment, just to say this is what I'm remembering. Because if they can remember small globules of it and let it out through an open and transformative heart, right, with a person who's already got an open heart, then a cleansing process happens. Very important, this. Otherwise it just goes on in a revolution where the energy comes up, guilt ridden, pushed down, up, down, up,
Right,
down.
right.
And so the whole point about it is, it's to clear those sort of reservoirs of repressed energy,
Yeah.
right, in an open and honest and a balanced way, and I'm not going to get into methods of doing that, because different people are different. But the point about it is, it's to go and do it with somebody who's been through the process before, you see, because then it's truthful. Todd, this is massive, because if any organization outside of the individual wanted to keep people in their place, it would make sex and all these human feelings guilt-ridden.
Well,
And
that's where, and that's why this is so important. Hey, can you do me a favor? Can you, my friend Nina Stevens is in the audience, and today's her birthday, Nina. So I just wanted to say happy birthday, and I'm going to sing, and Joe can join me if he wants to.
No problem.
Happy birthday to
To
you.
you. Happy
Happy birthday
birthday
to
to
you. Happy birthday, dear Nina. Happy birthday to you. She's a beautiful soul. She's a
Happy birthday, Nina.
yeah. She's a very very beautiful soul. And I've always been a supporter of Soulogy. And you know, any of Morgan's old friends that have supported Soulogy, like in our early days, when we were still hadn't even like physically met, always meant a lot to me. So anyway, thank you for joining me there. So it's yeah. Oh, there she is. There she is. She's beautiful. Here, I'll put her picture up. Yeah, there she is. So, Dr. Joe, I'm gonna let you conclude things, but let me just make a couple of statements if you don't mind. One, we are having a Soulogy Fest August 26, 27, 28 in the Ozark Mountains on Mulberry Mountain. I know there's a few emails and messages that have questions that are pending. I'll get to those in the next 2 or 3 days. It's moving along pretty good. We're at about 35 people. We want to get to at least 100. I have a feeling it'll be a lot more than that. It is available on live stream. A lot of people have already started signing up for that. It's going to be a first-class live stream, I can promise you that. We've got some professionals and professional hardware and software, and we've got excellent signal, the best we could ever get. So I wanted to say that. I wanted to also say thanks to Dr. Joe and his lovely wife, and everyone else out there who's continually shown us love and support and contributions over the years. We wouldn't be able to do this. A great example is I had no idea, moving out of the house and going into a hotel per the universe's direction, and everywhere I seemed to go, there was a problem with the signal, even at my friends in Texas. So there was 25 days there. We might have done like 6 or 8 shows. But when I got on the road, somehow or another through this invisible grid that we're all not so conscious of, at least not as conscious of as to how effective it is, I received 6, 7 contributions that just made it happen. And so that's just something I wanted to express our gratitude for, but also to as a demonstration of what we're actually doing, capable of doing, and what we're actually doing, and may not even know it. So yeah, I just wanted to say that. But yeah, Joe, why don't you take us out of here with and we don't have to cut it off right away. I'm just saying, let's go into the concluding part, and if you want to conclude, and if you want to do something, or if you want to put another subject on the table, and we'll kick it back and forth across the net until we close it out. Whatever you want to do.
No, I think just to say, I mean, we've touched on some really deep issues, and they're difficult sometimes because they do bring up emotional disturbance at depth, And what I've found is that instincts on the rampage, meaning that instincts that are trying to hide, they balk at investigation. And what that means is they keep trying to hide because they're basically afraid to see the light of day. And I've said this before, is I heard an expression that goes, we're only as sick as our secrets. And I think what's actually happening is this energy that's coming in, this cleansing, purgative sort of energy, is actually pushing these secrets up from underneath, so that we have to sort of face them. And it can be, it doesn't have to be a horrendously difficult process. But what I've learned is, and rightly or wrongly, I mean, it seems to be working for me. If I'm feeling emotionally disturbed, rather than react on it, is to try and remember to take a step back. And you can emotionally disengage by breathing it away. The out breath, neuroscientifically, is the releasing feminine energy. So that's like the softening energy that can disengage from the emotional reaction, so that you can become then objective about your subjectivity. And what that means is you get some space to almost watch your life, your personal life, on a stage, and then you can sort of almost like freeze frame the particular bits to say, oh right, I see that now, I see what happened, I said yes, I shouldn't say no. The universe is setting the stage again where it's going to be similar. So this time I'm going to say the opposite to cancel that out so I can move forward. And I think that's how it seems to work in me. But rather than thinking about it,
Yeah.
it's trying to sink deeply into the feeling to say what you're showing me. And something that came up today, Todd, early on was talk about loosh. Now, loosh is simply negative energy. It's negative energy. And if there was an evil force that was prevalent on the planet as well, it would feed on fear.
Hmm.
And so, really, in order to become fearless, you can't think your way into fearlessness. You've got to take action
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
neutralize it.
that's
And
right.
that's the thing, Todd. And you can
Yeah.
only neutralize it with an open and a flowing heart, because then that lets the light out to dispel the fear and the darkness. And so you don't become so appetizing then for any evil buggers that are knocking about who are hungry. Do you see what I mean? So there's lots in there, but the answer is, in very simple terms, if you're feeling emotionally disturbed, it's because you're in fight or flight. Fear underpins that emotional disturbance. The idea would be to breathe your way through it, walk through it, and overcome that. And then you become sort of less interesting then to, if there was such a thing, less interesting to the evil forces. So it's
Yeah.
in another word, I'll just say the fine thing is to pay it no heed and take no notice and give it no attention. It's just to basically open your heart and let your heart brush it away. There
Yeah.
we are. I don't know whether that makes sense, but there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. I just have one thing to say on that, and it's more of, it's not on the same, but one thing I noticed, and I want to say again, it's been the last 4 or 5 weeks, and it's happened before. I've heard people talk about it, but listening to you right now, I think there might be a connection because you were talking about ultimately whatever the subject is. This is the great unveiling. So, this is everything coming up, and we're discussing the science of it, right? I mean, we're discussing the experience of it in different ways. But one of the things that's happened over the last few weeks, and it kind of scared me at first, people talk about these moments that are associated apparently with ascension energies. And these are more of a physical kind of thing where people end up going to the hospital or, go to the doctor, think they're dying. I've had at minimum 10 in the last 6 weeks. Two, well, go figure, coming here and connecting with the mother, uh, where I felt like I was going to have a seizure or leave my body. I guess the reason I'm bringing this up is because in listening to you, I have, just I'm not realize this, but able to verbalize it. Those things that I'm feeling, because they do involve a lot of electrical and they involve some, belching and, you can feel the energy moving inside, and other things. They feel like to me it's the same thing as these emotional deep drives or dives. It feels like it's doing the same thing to me. Now, I'm not making it happen purposely or consciously. I'm just getting the intel that this is what's happening. So it's not just going to be these emotional deep dives. It's going to be, I feel like I'm having a heart attack. I feel like these are what I've been feeling like. I feel like I'm going to die. But I followed your thing and just, basically breathing and sitting with it and being it. Being it, which came from me learning to be the trigger, be what I'm feeling, be my, you know what I mean? Like I just applied the same thing, and after 5 to 10 minutes, it goes away. But yeah, I think I that's what I'm getting. That it's doing the same thing, and it's just something. It's not like, oh, now we can go do this. I don't know how to do it, but I don't know if you have any thoughts on that before we get out of here.
Yeah, yeah. This subtle energy that's coming in is working through the connective tissue, and the connective tissue contains these meridians and nadis. Right, they're invisible to medical science, but they're not unknown to ancient cultures. So it's this flow. It's what Reiki is. It's what prana is. It's what
Hmm.
chi is. It's what ki is. It's called elan vital. And there's all different names for the flow. But I think it's just the Holy Spirit, if you like. It's a feeling of energy that moves through our connective tissue. Now, the connective tissue right? If it's crumpled in any way, it will need straightening out. And as we straighten this out, right, as the power increases, it's like the Michelin man. You know, the Michelin man. If you pump it up, so as the energy's coming in, like more pumping up and air, because spirit in one sense means pneuma, it means air. You know, so it's a feeling of like a flow of air, but that's pumping up our connective tissue now, which is causing our nervous system underneath it to actually activate our musculoskeletal system. Todd, it's all part of, again, a realignment process, because most of us, our muscles are so posturally out of line that we start to get muscle pains then. It's like fibromyalgia and chronic myalgic encephalomyelitis, all these different phrases, you know, chronic fatigue syndrome. Sometimes the pain's unbearable, and what we need to do really is we need a connective tissue massage, we need to do stretching, drink plenty of water, and start moving and stretching as much as we can. You know, it's like having a muscle contained in that cling film wrap. There's nothing wrong with the muscle. It's the cling film that needs straightening out. So as soon as you straighten the cling film out, the muscle goes, whoa, thanks very much for that. And then we get a big flush through then. Does this make some sort of sense?
Yeah, I'm getting that, no pun intended, but the whole purging thing, that's another way I know too. When, like I had one this morning, when you're coming out of one phase, I have a massive purging. Like it's, you know, it's almost like just totally depleting. But you said something else too. Oh, I wanted to say this too because it might help some people. I've come across 3 people, really 4, one through the story of another, or, you know, somebody else telling me, relaying it to me. 4 people who on or about 1st of 2021. And I don't know why, again, I'm just guided to say this. Each one of them came down with a very debilitating condition. Loss of job, hospital stay, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In the past 2 to 3 weeks, 4 weeks, those situations have alleviated themselves. And these were they feel very similar to what you were explaining in terms of the connection. The fascia, as Denise talks about, the fascia, but very much like what you were talking about. Like that was some of the actually that was in all of them. Limited movement, pain, and so on. So I think maybe that's an indicator, because obviously all of us anchor, you know, our own thing, but like we're all part of collective teams doing specific work. So I felt like it was a good sign. I was a bit shocked to hear, because I knew a couple of these people, about what had happened to them and to the depth that it occurred. But then I was equally pleasantly surprised that they seemed to be coming out of it at the same time. So that felt like a good, you know, like a good bit of information to take in with everything else.
Well, final point, Todd, because I'm going to bed in a minute because I'm knackered. Right.
You're naked.
Knackered.
I know that word.
Yeah.
Morgan
in the
uses
UK,
it.
In the UK, it's tired. I'm tired. So, here's the thing: if you're concerned about your health and you don't know what it is, it may well be ascension symptoms, but it may well be a problem that needs medical intervention as well, because we mustn't discount anything. So you must always, if you're concerned, is go and see your registered medical practitioner. There's a sort of a disclaimer there, Todd, you know, because, you know, what I found is that medicine, I'm not anti-medicine at all. I'm just anti-medicine that's used in the wrong way at the wrong time for the wrong condition. So I think medicine has got some fantastic positive things. But once again, if you're not sure, put your hand on your heart and just say, please, try and guide me to what's best for me. That's what I would suggest.
Right on.
So on that note, yeah. So
Sounds...
listen, thanks, mate.
Yeah, man.
We'll be changed after this, because we're always changed, you know, because everything's moving. I'll wake up like a different person tomorrow.
Well, the next time I talk to you, I'll probably be back in Arkansas, and maybe stop in Texas on the way. But next time I see you, I won't be here. So, big love from Sedona, Dr. Joe. Give your wife a big hug and tell her I'll be praying for her. I know she has to put up with you every day.
Yes. And I love you, Todd, whether you like it or not. I love you.
Oh,
And
I
love
love you,
to
man.
Morgan as well.
I
I'll
love
see
you
you soon.
very much. So take care, brother.
God bless you.
Peace out. Thank you.
Bye, mate.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye
Be
bye.
back after a while with another program.